Good evening, everyone. We opened the meeting at 5 o'clock. And we approved the agenda for the evening, but we saved the Pledge of Allegiance for 6 o'clock. So would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
which stands one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We are at number 3, if we have an agenda, with the presentations, and so I'll turn it over to Mr. Poland to make those introductions.
Thank you, Mrs. Collier. It's a pleasure to introduce the Board of Education to Landon Winter tonight. He's going to speak to all of you about his experience at Cougar Ops, and if you look at Landon this evening, he's got quite a posse with him. So, I'm pretty proud of this young man because that speaks volumes about his character. When you get the staff from Cougar Ops to show up and speak with you and be there to support you, it speaks again to your character and what they think of you. So, Mrs. Merritt, is there anything you'd like to share with the board before we turn it over to Landon, let him speak?
Yeah, only that we said, be honest about everything. And if you say whatever, you can, speak your mind. That's what we hope.
I have a feeling he's going to do that.
Yeah.
So, Landon, it's a pleasure to have you speak to the board. If you want to just come on up and introduce yourself so that they can hear you, that'd be great.
Is there anywhere you want me to stand?
Honestly, right there is perfect.
All right, so my name is Landon Winter. I'm a senior here at Rose-Wolcott High School, class of 2024. Some of my future plans for when I graduate are going to a trade school for heavy machinery, and just hope I can make a living out of it. So that's some of my future plans. So Ops has helped me. So around 9th and 10th grade, I struggled with getting my schoolwork done on time, being able to pass my classes, and just a whole bunch of stuff. So being connected with Ops through summer school before 11th grade has really helped me because they allowed me to come in and be myself and just have a positive environment to where I can get my schoolwork done and just be myself in there. So like I said, I've been in Ops for about 2 years, and they helped me prepare for my regents that I failed the year before, and they helped me be able to prepare for them to where I passed them no problem, and I was able to recover credits for my classes to where I didn't have to take them the year after that. And due to the recovered credits and me being able to get all my grades up, I did not have to go to summer school for 11th grade. So I was able to go on to 12th grade without having to go to summer school. And then along with that, this year I earned work release for marshals. So I come in from 8 o'clock, and then I stay until 10:40. And then if I need to get some schoolwork done, I ask them if I could stay after until 2:20 or leave a little bit sooner than that so I can get all my work caught up and just be able to make sure I pass for the year so I don't have to worry about going to summer school or trying to catch up later on. And this one comes from Miss Maltika. Why I love Ops. Like I said before, it's a very positive environment in there. They allow some people to come in and get their work done. They allow them to relax if they really need to, if they're having a bad day or if they're stressing out about everything. And since this is my last card and there's anything else I want to add on it, just everyone in there, Miss Plow, Miss Merritt, Miss Maltika, Miss G, they're all really helpful in Ops, and so I've been able to catch up on my schoolwork and make sure I don't have to go to summer school.
It's fantastic. Can I ask you a question? It seems to me a couple weeks ago, you dressed like your twin. I do believe I saw at least 3 adults wearing Carhartt hats and hoodies, and I believe your name was associated with that as being her twin.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I can say, like I mentioned, your presentation tonight's fantastic. I think it speaks volumes. The staff is here, and having witnessed that a few weeks ago, when you have staff members, including administrators, dressing like you, it speaks volumes. So thank you for the wonderful job you did tonight. Thank you.
Landon, it's just so wonderful to hear you express such positive things about Cougar Ops and about yourself and what you have achieved. That's grand. And I'm sure you'll be able to make a super living with in heavy equipment. That's a good area to be in. Good for you. Board member? Yeah.
I don't have any questions. So, that's beautiful. Good, good time.
Can you use
Paul,
your
can you use your
microphone?
microphone, please?
Oh, yeah.
Back to the questions. Linda, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. The reason I ask that is because I've been on Zoom before and somebody charged to talk. So I'm holding this in front of me on purpose. So my first question you've already answered, but to repeat it was, you expect to graduate in time? You already said yes. I was interested to know, you said that you kind of started in summer school between yourself with Cougar Ops. I didn't quite understand how that transition went.
So so when I was in summer school, I actually got introduced to ops by Miss Merritt. So I was in English or history to recover credits, and I ended up having to go down to the library because I didn't quite get along with some of the people that were in my class. So I asked if I could go down to the library, and Miss Johnson, the librarian teacher, helped me get most of my schoolwork done. And when I went to go turn it in down there to the main office thing for ops, I got talking to Miss Merritt about recovery credits and everything like that. So they ended up introducing me to ops around the beginning of 11th grade, so I did really catch up on my credits.
Thank you. I understand. That's great. Thank you.
That was great. Well done. And yes, congratulations, and look forward to seeing you at graduation.
All right, thank you again, Landon. So next, we're going to turn it over to Mrs. Pagliatti. She's going to do an update for us. Twice a year, typically, she'll give the Board of Education an update. So right now, we've got some first quarter data. We've got some summer stuff that she's going to provide and go through the quick overview.
All right, that is a hard thing to follow, but I'll try to do my best. So I want to take some time and go over some of our state data and the response to it and what we plan to do moving forward to adjust. So as always, we center our work around our mission and our vision. And the area we're going to focus on tonight is the instructional practices, where students will have access to engaging, relevant, standards-based instructional practices to improve student learning. So I wanted to go over first a little bit about what our data review process is. So scores are released. Regions are usually pretty quickly after the regions are given, but 3 through 8 scores are released in the fall. So we have to wait quite a while for those to come out. And once those are released, we send them to the principals, and then we bring them to Leadership Council, which is the mixture of our administrators and our teacher leaders that are part of our school leadership teams. There, we go through a data review and a feedback process. And then our school leadership teams develop a plan to use the data to then inform their curricular and instructional decisions. And so I'm going to go through, and you're going to see some of the process that we went through with Leadership Council to look at that data as we go through each of these pieces. Okay, so here you can see our math 3 through 8 scores, and I'm just going to take a few minutes to orient you to the chart. So the grades are going down the side. If you look across horizontally, you'll see 3rd grade is 21, 22, the proficiency rate. That's students who scored a 3 or a 4, 29% for 21, 22. If you go horizontally to 22, 23, that's basically, as long as the teachers didn't change, the same teachers teaching a different group of students. If you look that way, to kind of see how teachers did with teaching the standards for that area, for that grade. If you go, oh, you can't see it on there. If you go down, that's the cohort data. So you'll see in 21, 22, the 3rd graders are then 4th graders in 22, 23. So if you look down, it's the cohort of them going up 1 grade from 1 year to the next. The green is showing if a cohort improved their scores from 1 grade to the next, and the red is if they decrease. So you can see the only decrease we had for math was the 7th graders this past year. Then if you look all the way to the right, that's our standing in the region. Out of the 25 schools in the region, this is where we fell. So obviously, glad that we're seeing increases, but we need to do better. We're not happy with this, but we do want to look and kind of see our standings in the region when we're looking at our scores. Any questions about that chart?
Megan, what data is this again?
This is our 3 through 8 math test scores, the state tests.
State testing, okay.
Yep. So another piece I wanted us to look at is our pre and post-COVID regional comparison for our math. So again, you'll see there's the grades, and these are just the years of where we stood within the 25 districts in the region. So you can see the first 2 columns are pre-COVID. The second 2 columns are post-COVID. I didn't make it red and green to look like Christmas, but it looks like that. But as you can see, 17, 18 to 18, 19, there was a lot of decrease. That was before COVID. Then coming out of COVID, we did better in 2 of the grades. And then this past year, we're doing better in 3 of the grades. So still a lot of improvement to be had. But that just kind of shows you how our students fared before and after COVID. Any questions on that one? Okay. So like I said, Leadership Council did a data review. And what we really did is we went through and we looked at what do we notice about this data? What do we wonder? And then they also gave me information about what additional information they wanted in order to determine next steps. So for that math data that we looked at, they noticed that there was an increase in cohort gains in all but 1 grade, and that we are on the lower side of the region. They wondered, when we're looking at our elementary school, do the Ames Web scores match the state test proficiency rates? So we're wondering, can our Ames Web predict how our students will do on the state tests? That's something we want to look into more. We started Zern this past year in the elementary school. So we're wondering, is Zern positively impacting those skills because of the increases? Last year was the first year everybody did the state test on the computer. So it's computer-based testing. Everybody has to get there, and so we decided we're going to do it and have our kids try it. So are we teaching kids how to take tests on the computer using those digital tools enough? Because that's a whole skill set in itself, that if they don't practice it, it's really hard for them to be able to figure out how to show what they know on the computer. So are we teaching them those skills? And with middle school using iReady this year, we're wondering how iReady will impact our data. We also want to look at how we replicate the instructional practices in those classrooms that showed an increase in student scores. And then how far are we from moving up in the region? We kind of want to see how we can get higher within that ranking. So a similar chart for our English language arts for our 3 through 8 tests. As you can see here, we did not have as many increases. In fact, we had a decrease from the students that were 3rd to 4th last year, and then also 4th to 5th. Our 6th graders did show an improvement. And then our 8th graders showed an improvement. Again, not where we want to be, but this is where we're at. And you can see the standing in the region for those. Again, for the pre and post COVID regional comparison, you can see coming out of COVID, things looked quite a bit worse, and we're starting to move back towards improvements in the region with this past year's data.
So what,
Mhm.
sorry,
Oh, God.
so I guess when I'm looking at the 6th and 7th grade and just the increase in the overall comparison to other districts, I wonder is what are they doing different? Right?
Yes.
So I think all the wonders that you're asking us are helpful for you to be looking forward. But I really would be interested in understanding in those classrooms, what are they doing?
Yeah. So again, those things that we noticed and wondered, we saw a 9% increase in scores for our current 9th graders, so last year's 8th graders. So that was big growth for them. We noticed that 3rd and 7th have some higher standings in the region. Again, like you said, Shelley, the 6th grade teachers are doing something well. So what is it that they're doing and how can we replicate that? And then notice that 3 out of the 5 cohorts decreased. We wondered what percent of students scored a high 2. Typically, if you can focus on those students who have a high 2, you can get them boosted up to a 3. So what percent of students, and that's something Lori's been doing an amazing job pulling data for us. And her and Christy were just talking today about looking at those reports that show what students scored specifically what standards they missed, so we can try to boost those students up. Again, how do we create a sense of urgency for improvement? We want to share this data with the whole staff so they can see this is where we're at, learning from each other from those classrooms that are doing things well, how we can replicate that. We were wondering again, did the change to CBT from paper have negative impacts? It was the first time everybody had done it on the computer. And then are the changes of increases and decreases similar across the region? So looking at that, the elementary school, yeah, go ahead.
Megan, how closely packed are the scores? In other words, when you're doing ratings of other school districts, are they all bunched together that one point here or there makes a huge difference? Or are they spaced?
They're pretty spread out, I would
Are they
say.
really?
I mean, it depends. But what I did is I looked at our score and I counted the number of districts below it and above it. And it all really depends on that grade level and that test, because if they're not comparable, like grade level to grade level. It just depends on that cohort of kids that took that test and how they did in that district.
Yeah, I guess what I was talking about was the points that are given, the grade level, are they close to the next level up or down?
Oh, gotcha. So we haven't gotten into that deep yet. Those are reports we're going to be looking at.
That could be significant one way or the other.
Yes.
If it's really tight point here or there, it might make a huge difference.
Yes.
Thank you.
Megan?
Yeah.
What tests are you basing that on? Their tests at what? 4th grade and 8th grade?
So this is 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th
Right.
English language arts. So all of them. The state assessment that's given in May.
A state assessment is given at every grade level?
Yep, 3rd through 8th. All right, so elementary school leadership team took a look at this and decided what they were going to do for their next steps. Erie One BOCES has a math trend website that they were going to be looking at to do some comparison between our school and other schools. There was a piece where we send these home to parents, but we want to make sure parents really understand what they're looking at. So the elementary wants to create a cover sheet that really explains what the state test is and what the scores mean. We purposely did not send it out at the same time as report cards because we didn't want teachers or parents to think that these scores impacted students' report card scores. It's really a separate piece that we look at because it informs our instructional program just as much as it informs how students learn standards. So we use it for both of those. We want to provide teachers a sample state test report so they can really look at it and see what we're looking at, so they can become more informed about the data. And then our MTSS teams review the students who scored a 1 or a 2 on the state test. And what they do is they compare that to our students who are currently receiving interventions to make sure we're hitting all those students who have low skill sets, to make sure that they are getting the support they need and seeing is that matching the Ames Web. And typically it does. The students who have low Ames Web scores did score a 1 or 2. They're going to be looking at the item analysis data to determine what standards we're doing really well at teaching, what standards we really need to improve, and maybe revise our curriculum maps to improve more hitting upon those standards. And then we're going to continue to look at those report card scores and the Ames Web scores to see if that is a predictor of how students will do. One way we're trying to make the report cards more objective in the elementary school, so it really is a better measure of student learning, is the elementary school teachers have worked really hard to create rubrics for the standards and each skill within standards. So before, we had standards-based report cards at the elementary school, and teachers would score students on a 1 to 4. You know, 1 might be that they're really not showing a grasp of the standard, 2 is somewhat, and moving on up. So that was fine, except that we didn't have consistency and objectivity between the numbers. So here there's actual descriptors that the teachers all look at so that it's completely consistent. No matter what teacher you have, you know if a student has that skill, they're getting that number, and that shows how far they're progressing along the standard. And they're doing that for ELA, and then here's a math example as well. And I know you guys are still working on revising them and making sure that it's exactly what we're looking for, but a great way to make things a little bit more standardized within our own practices.
Are you able, from a state test, to determine whether the errors made were in fluency or whether they were in word recognition? Is that a possibility with a state test or not?
Not really.
No.
It's just they got the answer wrong. It's hard to know why,
Okay.
because it tests so many different skills at once.
Yeah.
Really the Ames Web is where we would look for that, to tell us those specific skills, those areas that are lacking. So we use many different multiple points of data to try to figure those things out. So the middle school school leadership team met as well. They're working with their grade level teams to review this data and their iReady data, and they have moved things around to create instructional groups that are at certain levels so that students are really getting this practice and the skill work that they need for the level that they're at. So using that multiple points of data to get them into those groupings. They've been looking at the math data trends and ELA data trends. So each grade level is working to identify priority standards and identify the percent of students who learned each standard. And then they're going to be working to adjust the scope and sequence to reteach those standards if needed. And they can do this during the win time, which is what I need, that specific time to target what students have a deficit in. So additionally, they're comparing the students who are getting interventions to the scores on the state test, just like the elementary is through the MTSS process. They're going to be looking at that regional data within their grade level teams. And then one thing they really do want to look at is getting students prepared for the test. So making sure our unit assessments and our midterms really mirror the format of the state test in all content areas. So they're getting used to not just the content, but the format and the practice of how to take the test and what it looks like. Okay. Anything about math ELA 3 through 8? We're going to go on to the regions results. So these results are our January, June, and August results all put together for students that took them within that time frame. I do not have where we are in the region with these because I don't have the data from all three of those administrations of the test from the other districts. So I couldn't really compare that. I could only compare to what was given in June, which really wasn't fair because our ELA score is much better if you look at all three test administrations of it. So there you can see where we are. Physics, 100%, we had one student who took it, who did a great job. Just to give you an idea there. And again, we looked at the data review through Leadership Council. So we noticed, we were excited about physics, of course. When we were looking at just June, ELA proficiency looked really low. But then when we added in the January and the August, it wasn't looking as bad. So it's really important to know what data you're looking at because it can change drastically depending on what's included or what's left out. We noticed that global proficiency was high. We talked about the fact that even though all 3 through 8 tests have to be given on the computer, when you get to the high school, you take Regents on paper. So it's really a disconnect there with the state, and it's something that we just thought was interesting. So also this data doesn't include students who received the special appeal. This is just the test scores, but there was a special appeal because of COVID. And then earth science proficiency was high. So we wondered, how far are we from the next district with a higher standing? What standards are we doing well with versus not doing well with? And again, those are things that we're going to be able to look into with those reports. They wondered what are the poverty rates for each of the schools in the region? That was something they thought would be really interesting to look and see if there was a correlation between the scores and the poverty rates. What practices are being used in global and earth science that we can replicate? Kind of like what you said before. And then there was a question about what do vertical skills for geometry look like? So the high school took that information and the MTSS team, instructional coach, grade level teams, they reviewed the data and the iReady data because they do have that for some of the students at the high school as well, to create Regents prep classes for math and reading. So they're gonna also be looking at priority standards, especially because there's a new Regents in all math courses. And they're gonna continue to adjust their scope and sequence to reteach the priority standards. And same thing for the ELA and social studies data. So one thing that we have really found as a benefit for us to do this work is having our instructional coaches. So they really helped to lead a lot of this work to be at the grade level teams. So some of the things that they've done is identifying priority standards work to get the grade level teachers all on board with helping to determine that and look and see how well we're teaching those. They're part of the MTSS process to review the specific intervention data. They review data and create professional learning around deficit areas. They present the learning to the teachers, and then they follow up with teachers for implementation. So for example, I was able to see instructional coach who took our June letter naming fluency numbers, and she saw that they were not where we wanted them to be at the end of kindergarten. So she did a PD with the kindergarten teachers to show this is where we ended up. This is the district's goal. We have this big gap. She taught them different ways to increase fluency within the classroom and different times throughout the day that they could do it. And then also through her instructional coaching meetings, she goes into the classroom and she sees it in action and then meets with the teacher to see how it's going, to reflect and see if they have any questions. So it's really a full circle piece that they're able to do around the data and improving student learning. They lead data review to create groupings for teachers within classrooms if they're trying to figure out different skills and small groups within their classrooms. They're helping to create the similarly formatted assessments so that our tests do look like the state tests for benchmark testing. And then ensuring consistency among the teachers within grade levels and content areas. So you remember not too long ago, we didn't have really strong curriculum maps. They weren't all in one place. We have that now, and we have guaranteed curriculum that if a student is in 4th grade, no matter what teacher they have, they're gonna be learning the same things. And that's something that the instructional coaches help us make sure that people are on the same piece and teaching things with fidelity. And that's all I have. Any questions? John?
I do. The state has been famous for changing state tests and requirements. Have they done that recently? In other words, is your data consistent with the testing procedures or have they changed something?
So we
They-
didn't have it for a couple years because of COVID, so we
Yeah,
didn't
right.
have it at all. And then last year was our first time to do all the computer based. So that's really our baseline, I would say, for the way we have to take it now, this last year. So moving forward, we'll be able to compare that. It's like the second time for most kids to be taking it on the computer. The format of the test often changes and the weighting of the different, I mean, it's really a whole formula that's really hard for us to understand how they all come out with the scores. But if we focus on the standards, we know that students are going to be more prepared to be able to answer those questions.
If there are no radical changes that you foresee coming.
No,
Sure.
not at this time.
Good.
For the regions, the math tests are, and then in 2025, the science tests are, because they're going to be shifting to more of the investigations like they did for 5th and 8th grade science. So there's some changes coming there, but not for 3rd grade that I know of.
Thank you.
Megan, it occurs to me that if kids have to do the, take the tests on the computer, just the keyboard skills alone could be a daunting thing for them to deal with. You know, if you're hunting and pecking, you begin to lose your train of thought in the ELA or whatever. I can see that it's really difficult, particularly if you've got students who maybe don't have those computers at home where kids or the iPads, you know, where they're used to playing with those using words. Games is one thing, that's a different thing, but you know, it's discouraging to see the scores. I'm hoping that as we see our kids moving up from the pre-kindergarten, that there will be a better foundation than they have, that they will be more on target.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things with that is we're very lucky that you have supported as a board having one-to-one devices. So our students do have them. If not, if they don't take them home, at least they have them during the day. And we try to do a good portion of our work on there, so they are having that experience. The one thing that's pretty tricky is the math tools. That's something that really has to be taught of how to do that on the test. It's very different. And then the other piece that we've talked about is really, if you look at our current 2nd graders, they're the only group right now that really has been in school consistently and weren't affected by COVID. So if you look at our current 2nd graders and kind of watch them go up, it'll be interesting to see what they do because they haven't had the disruption.
And the other thing that it occurs to me that because we have a lot of kids who are achieving at the 1 and 2 level, it doesn't help us score-wise if we're not pushing our 3s into 4s.
Right.
And, you know, we do have to put our eggs, so to speak, in that lower basket. But if we were looking to just create our scores so that we look better in comparison, we ought to be pushing our 3s and 4s to get that top score,
Right.
the average.
And one thing we're hoping that we can do with iReady is really showing us students who are achieving at that higher level, and there's challenge pieces to really keep moving them ahead. So that's a piece that we will hopefully see those higher students really keep achieving and keep growing in that area.
Well, I think the other part to keep in mind is the proficiency, moving from proficient to mastery is a part of each of the building goals. So that is something. So when we talk about our district goals, but each of the building school improvement plans incorporate proficiency and mastery rates as well. So that is a consideration.
So that is my wonder with, you're looking at, does the Ames Web match the state proficiency rates? I mean, I think you already have that data from Ames Web, so I would think you'd be able to look at that. I'm equally as interested in the iReady. So, with the iReady, in looking at that benchmark time, when you're benchmarking the students and then determining what they need. So during that win time, they're able to either be enriched or supplemented. I think that really looking at both of those benchmarking tools is something that really needs to be focused on, because that can then add to how do we help to stretch, how do we help to enhance. So,
I want to echo our board presidents. It's discouraging to see the scores go down, of course. And I was so I know we did curriculum mapping. We felt we were in good shape there. We had the library that you mentioned. We felt we were in good shape there. Lisa had hot spots all over the county, and everybody had their Chromebook. So when all this data, and I understand all the things you're doing, which of course I support, but I'm wondering if at the end of the studies, maybe there's is there a big aha moment or an epiphany somewhere where how did we miss? So you're on that.
No, one thing I can say as a parent is that I was home with my student during COVID, and he was in kindergarten trying to learn virtually, and I couldn't stop him from getting up and running around the house, and I was really trying hard to get him to engage. So I feel that as much as we can provide during COVID, the digital libraries, the teachers getting on Zoom, there's that piece that we didn't have control of, which was having the students there and being able to get them in front of us. So as much as we provided, we couldn't get 100% participation. We couldn't get kids to log on, not 100%. And I think that's a big piece of how we miss students if they just weren't participating during that time.
Well, we know that the country lost, everybody went back. So not everybody, but most schools, most students went back. But I was just, it seems like the other schools in the county didn't fall as badly as we did. So again, maybe you get everything done, they'll be, oh, okay. We ever have to do this again.
But yes, we will definitely learn from what we experienced before. Thank you. Yeah. Do you want to? How's it gonna work from back?
Thank you, Megan. I think, the data is what it is. We're not gonna stop, and we certainly won't shy away from what our blemishes are. I think the last few years have certainly given us a foundation and a blueprint for how to move forward, and we're willing to do that work to keep moving us in the right direction. So my portion is really gonna be fairly quick. I want to kind of go through and just say thank you to the community. Last night, we had about an 80% approval rate for our capital project. So we've approved a $16.8 million project last evening with that positive vote. The construction management team, the engineers, architects, and design team, and district staff today to start laying out what we feel is a reasonable scope and sequence in terms of timeline, and then really starting to put our priorities together and really hone in on what we want to achieve as part of that positive vote. And if all goes according to plan, we will be shovel ready by late spring, early summer of 25. Certainly, we know we have to do some work based on some of the areas that are going to be impacted, such as the elementary gym, which is a competition gym, and then other areas that are critical for us opening up the school year and getting off to a good start with those particular learning environments. Last month, the board actually created and decided that there would be part of their board goals would be to focus in on a climate survey. So I think that there was a lot of healthy discussion over the summer And then last month, you approved it as part of the board goal. So one of the charges that was given to me was to really start honing in on, thinking about a climate survey and really trying to provide our community with a format in which they could go ahead and express some of their feelings to us, whether it's academic, whether it's social, emotional, or whether it's environmental. And, I'm turning over tonight, we're going to discuss this with the board, your feeling tone on what I believe are some major areas that we want to address under this climate survey. So I'm not going to read that to you, that's in your packet, but essentially it's talking about how do we create that sustainable, positive climate that fosters development and learning for all students. And really starting to narrow our scope in on those patterns, the personal relationships, the teaching and learning practices, and making sure that we're dedicating our resources where we need to put them. So under that positive school climate at the bottom, you're going to start to see, again, a lot of repetitive wording in terms of norms, values, engagement, respect, what the role of the students, family, and educators looks like, and really starting to continue in on, are we doing a good job here at North Rose-Wolcott? So I've narrowed it down to about 5 key areas that I think we really should start focusing on. Obviously, Megan presented the information on the data. The schools and the directors have presented their respective school improvement plans, their department plans. But I want to say to the group as a whole, there are areas that probably parents might consider that we need to focus in on that we as educators haven't thought about. So areas of improvement would be one column. Enhance the student well-being would be a second. Strengthening our relationships, making better and informed decision-making processes as a priority for us, and then at the end, evaluating our progress with whatever we do. So really from my focus, I've kind of honed in on about 4 particular areas that I'm curious about, and I'm hoping the board can give me a little bit of feedback on this. But what I would say seems to be part of what's happened lately, we really need to focus in on bullying prevention, relationship building, student engagement. We really have to examine the teacher and student dynamic and the relationships there. Because I have to say, from a subjective point of view, I think we're doing a really nice job in a lot of areas. But conversely, I would say there are a lot of areas that I think we need to make significant improvements in when it comes down to student and teacher relationships. And then last, I really want to focus on our support services. Are we engaged in the appropriate support services for our students? We all heard Landon's presentation tonight, and I would say we really differentiated and tailored his academic program to meet his needs. I would love to be able to say that for the 1,159 students that are in our district right now, we've been able to provide the same individual and unique experiences, and I'm hoping that this climate survey may be able to do that. I believe that if we understand our strengths and our weaknesses, that we can prioritize our resources and continue the implementation of our targeted approach. I also feel like part of what we have to focus in on would be to ensure that all students feel valued, respected, and emotionally supported, regardless of where they come from, regardless of their background, their socioeconomic status, or whether they're the captain of the basketball team or the lead in the musical. We want to make sure that every student out there feels valued and respected when they cross the threshold of our school buildings. I'm very curious about student perception, staff perception, community perceptions on safety, inclusivity, and what we are doing to make sure our students feel supported. I do want to focus in on how we handle and address harassment, discrimination, social isolation, all the things that you know are under that umbrella of that bullying tactic. And I am curious to see, are our measures and our approaches really started to be effective when it comes down to tracking our attendance and narrowing our scope on why students don't show up, why students don't come on time. And again, I would say, believe that the board, as part of this approach, would be curious as to that as well. I really feel like these are some critical components, the student well-being specifically, to allow us to hone in on our academic and overall development for our programs. When it comes to strengthening relationships, you know, a few years back, you heard me say the relationship was one of those foundational pieces. It's a cornerstone in anything we do and everything we do. If we don't have quality, strong, positive relationships, again, I don't think academic achievement is something that we're going to see. So I'd like to see our parents, our students, our staff, and our teachers be able to openly and honestly express their opinions on what's going well, what's not going well, what they think we need to concentrate our time and energy on. And I want to continue to create those channels of open dialogue and foster that shared responsibility. I think that actively involving all of our stakeholders through a collaborative effort will continue to build trust and foster stronger relationships. And then with respect to assessment, you know, I want to make sure that we're actually using an informed decision-making process to guide our programs and initiatives. You know, oftentimes the Board of Education will ask me, how do we know? How do we know what we're doing is effective? How do we know what we're putting our time, energy, and resources into is producing the results that we hope for? I think by fostering this climate survey and providing our community with an opportunity to give us input, we'll be able to take and look at some of that when it comes down to making more informed decisions. And I also feel like, you know, we're going to be able to enhance the relevance of our district educational practices. You know, we've talked about stretching from proficient to mastery. We talked about remediation, offering supplemental support. I believe the survey would be able to provide us with targeted information to do that. I'm hoping that the board feels the same way. And lastly, I want to make sure that when we create the norm, that we're tracking this progress over time. You know, I'm not in the business of creating an initiative this month and then creating another initiative next month. I'm not in the business of creating, you know, initiatives one year and then scrapping them. I definitely am in the business of modifying, adjusting, and tweaking our norms to make sure that we're, you know, sticking to our commitments and ensuring with fidelity that we're actually assessing our effectiveness before we scrap things. Again, those areas there, the creating the norm, assessing the effectiveness, and identifying the trends, I think it goes back to our mantra. Continuing to be data informed will allow us to make our adjustments to our strategies and initiatives, and ultimately result in the continuous growth that I know we're striving for. And my hope is that if the board sees fit, that once we kind of secure the vendor we're hoping to work with, that we would be able to administer this climate survey in late January or early February of 24. If that's the case, my ideal timeline would be to get those results back to us in spring, and then I analyze and I digest this stuff with the stakeholder groups, the leadership team, and then really look to implement those results in our school improvement plans, and ultimately use this information as a springboard when we really revisit our strategic action plan, because, you know, we're coming up on that timeline where we have to assess that and start to really focus our priorities. And so I'm hoping that the board at this time would be able to kind of give me a little bit of feedback on your thoughts and whether those big bucket items are an idea or an area that you agree with. when it comes down to these 5 areas. Sorry.
You mentioned stakeholders twice, and without trying to pin you down to a full assessment, but who do we consider are the stakeholders?
I believe this survey would go out to everybody. So the vendor that I've talked to most recently, we would provide our pre-K through 4 families with a platform, and the parents would be responsible for filling that out. And then from 5 through 12, our students and their families would fill it out. And then there would be a separate format for our service employees, our instructional staff, our administrators. I believe that this would be an all-encompassing approach.
Good, thanks.
So, I mean, creating surveys, administering surveys is a big task. And I really appreciate the work that you have focused on this. It does sound like you're looking for an outside vendor to be able to do this, which I truly appreciate, again, because you don't have the time to do it yourself. And I think it also creates just a different level of having an outside provider to come in and administer it and then provide you and your team and all of us with results. So thank you very much. I think it's a great step for all.
I know one of your, I remember the 3 R's. One of them, of course, was relationships. And you captured that, of course. But do you envision going outside of just, I mean, we've talked about the parents, you know, how you discuss. I'm wondering if there's any way to capture more of the community.
Well, I think that you all have to understand that there's so many different stakeholder groups within our walls. We have to put some sort of boundaries on how many people we surveyed and what their particular task is, because I think that's going to dilute some of the survey information. So really our primary focus would be on the 1,159 students, their families, our staff, and then obviously the community that's encompassed in that. But I think if we start to get beyond that, what I would worry about is the fidelity of the survey and what the benefits of continuing to go out would be. It's not to say we won't solicit them and share that information with the community at large, but I also know that with respect to the school climate, there has to be that relevance based on their involvement with our school as well. You know, because I believe, you know, that relevant piece is one of those things that, you know, you've heard me say a lot also, and the responsiveness. So there has to be a component where we kind of define our parameters and stick with that, or else if I continue to go out for different stakeholder groups, when do I come up with a timeline and stop that so that I know I've collected as much information as possible as well? That's a fear.
I'm very comfortable with the parameters you've set, because for myself, if I was to have to fill out a survey, it's gonna probably be on hearsay, because I don't have a student in school or a relative, and I think it's a good start. I think it's a good basis. I don't think we can try to get the whole community involved in the first place. They'll let us know what they think, but they won't a budget.
Well, of course, I agree. You know, I mean, let's limit it to the school community.
Yeah,
Which encompasses all of our workers. And everything.
Right.
That's got to be enough, at least for a start, my goodness.
I think,
right? Big deal.
It is a big undertaking. It is experiencing myself, my previous work, it is. I think, in my experience, we were one of the first districts that did a survey. ourselves, so with the help of others, so that it was lively. But I think now that there are other companies out there, there are other people that are out there providing that service. So again, you don't have the time to do that.
Yeah, and I hope that this becomes part of our overarching culture as well, because again, you know, we're in year 4 of a 5-year strategic action plan. And so Megan highlighted a lot of things that we've put together, but you know, when you have a defined and viable curriculum, this is truly the first year you can say with certainty that 13 plus grade levels have that, right? Because we've had components of it, and we feel like we've identified the right areas, but going out to all people who have the ability to give you open and honest feedback in a confidential way, you'll know it. And I think targeting that and continuing to use this on a regular basis will certainly help. I've had a lot of positive experiences with the Search Institute in the past. They really narrow in on student behaviors, attitudes, and risk-taking. And, you know, we may find as a result of this particular approach that we want to do different surveys with specific targeted groups in mind. So maybe it will be a larger part of our community at some point in time. But I believe if we focus on these 5 buckets, that should give us enough of a foundation moving into next year's school improvement plans, because it's going to be in conjunction with the data. You know, nothing we do is in isolation. So I know some people will say, well, you didn't do enough of this or you did too much of that. You know, that's all relative. The data will tell us exactly what the majority of people think. And it can't be diluted, and it can't be oversaturated with one particular thing, because people are going to end up with individual accounts in which they can fill out their information and then turn it in. And as Shelley said, with a third-party vendor, there's no worry that Mike Pullen's going to sit back and tickle the keys and manipulate the data, because he doesn't know how to do it to begin with. And number 2, I don't have attention span to sit there and do that. So this will kind of foster that honest, open dialogue that we're really looking for. And I think that was the intent of the board's decision last month.
I don't know quite how to answer this, but all the items that you've given on these pages, are these items that will be talked about and questioned in the survey? Each of these?
Yes, those will be the categories. I mean, there's a few different vendors that I've talked to. The most productive piece has allowed me to say, yes, these are areas that I think our community is looking for. And they will have the questions that are aligned to those particular items.
I think it's this is a 20-year project. I mean, it's huge. All these various items.
Well, I hope I'm done in here.
What I'm saying is, this is quite an involved survey. If you get the information on each of these bullets, or little check marks,
Right.
It's quite involved.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
The information might not pertain to us necessarily, but that's telling a story as well.
And I'm going to piggyback on Shelley's statement. You know, being the first to do something and blazing a pathway is really challenging in its own right. But now when you're jumping in the middle or 3/4 of the way down the line, you learn from some of those past administrations and you start to see some of the outliers in the data. You know, so if you get one way out and left field answer, you may look at that and say that that's a quality answer, but if there's 20 answers way out in left field, you're going to start to say they're onto something here. So that trend data is very important. And again, under these 5 buckets, we may see 2 or 3, or we may see 1,159 items in this particular field that really should start to steer our focus towards X, Y, and Z. whatever that may be. And again, I want to say the timeline when we get to it, if we administer it and we do it with fidelity and we use the third party vendor to help us out, this timeline here that we talked about, one more, it should be something that when we digest our end of the year, four quarters worth of data, the 3 through 8 data, the regions data, and this, we have some very healthy discussions that can take place over the summer and really start to narrow our scope in. You know, that's really the intent. It's not a gotcha type of thing. There's no benefit to going out and saying, well, your performance in this particular area stinks. I would say to you, we have some of the finest staff around that works really hard in particular areas. And just as much as we want to go out and do these data walks and look at personalized learning and visit classrooms within our district, we also want to visit people within our region that are doing the best. Just like we have people that want to come and visit our programs here as well. This stuff will start to help us say, yeah, you know, Hoover Ops has provided us with a great platform to make students feel right at home and have a custom fit academic program, which every student should have, in my opinion, that individual pathway. So I think that this stuff here really should produce some very good results and pay big dividends to us.
I'm in favor of the third party as well, because I think we need to recognize how busy our administrators are. And then splintering off and trying to do something like this just isn't possible. Not without them losing some commitment to some of the other endeavors that we're really focusing on. We can only expect so much. So I think this is a real positive. We need the information, we'll get it. It's a win-win. Let's take it.
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Yes, so the last piece, I just want to say thank you. You all know the chairman of the Board of Supervisors, Phil Egner, and Supervisor Dick Lasher are stepping down from their respective roles. They are going to go on to be board members in their respective communities. But as an incoming superintendent 4 years ago, having the benefit of working with some seasoned politicians who advocate strongly for the east side of our county, they truly will be missed. So I want to say thank you and congratulations to them. They've both been phenomenal advocates for our school district, and again, pushing for equity on the east end of the county. I would say to you, the 4 that I meet with regularly do that on a routine basis, but as these 2 gentlemen ride off into their new roles and out of the office, I just wanted to say thank you on behalf of our staff, students, and our school district as a whole. They've been phenomenal for us. That's it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Bowen. And thank you for working on the commitment that the board has made. And we especially thank you for embracing it so quickly. I didn't anticipate such speed, and I'm grateful. Thank you very much. Before we begin the board reports and correspondence, I would like to tell our staff who are here, we appreciate you being here, but it's been here an hour, and if you'd like to go home, please feel free. Spend some time with your family. Special thanks to you, Landon, for being here. Everybody's welcome to stay. That's not the point. But I don't want you to feel that you're a captive audience here. So the board will take a 2-3 minute break. You can get up and stretch, and we will proceed with reports and correspondence when we come back. Okay, we will get back to business with our reports and correspondence. John, do you have anything to report from the elementary school as the liaison to that building?
Let's It's the source of all Christmas spirit. I'm telling you, the elementary building is the place to be.
Of course it is.
Yes, I had a conference with the two administrators, and they're going to have a holiday, they're full of activities. Next Tuesday, a holiday concert, and the very nice thing is Santa, there's gonna be a visit by Santa.
Oh.
Yeah, and a high school band and choir are coming over to play, which I think is excellent for both groups. I mean, it gives the high school kids a reason to practice and be in a group, and it gives the kids like a sight on maybe a future avenue for them. They're going to have gingerbread days, yes, which will include a scavenger hunt, a read aloud by administration for each grade level. The student council is sponsoring a hot chocolate and cookies, and they have a huge number of parent volunteers that are assisting. They were reaching out to parents in the fall and had 20 plus parents then. They probably will have, Christmas, they're gonna have as many or more. Some classes are making gingerbread houses. They have the Cubby Club next Thursday, and they're celebrating the trait of the month. And I should have asked more details, but they have an awesome reader, and I put that in parentheses, featured, and I don't know. Quotation marks. They're adding recognition at the Cubby Club, which is a recognition ceremony, for students with perfect attendance. And they have 77 in perfect attendance in the month of November. So they do it, and they don't do it for the whole year, I assume I should have asked. But they do it by month, which is a more reasonable thing, shorter term. But 77 is great, especially with all this stuff that's going, And next year, that's not so joyous. We're having the winter benchmark testing, report, the Ames web testing, and there's this early indication with some informal testing in kindergarten that some of the kids in kindergarten made 3 years growth. And then they have something you will love, is that a new pre-K opens in January. Yeah. And next week, they're going to have a meet and greet for parents to meet the teacher and the aide. And right now, they have between 8 and 15 in the new classroom. And that's something our board president has been tuning for a long time, and I think it's a great thing to have that extra group. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Oh, to be in the elementary school, huh?
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Is that an additional pre-K?
Yes, that's the 3 pre-K, so, we have 2 sections of 3 pre-K, AM and PM, and this will be a second classroom with the intent on being an additional AM and additional PM 3 pre-K program as well. So we're trying to continue to cultivate those numbers and bring them in-house.
Perfect. Second question I had is, I know the American Legion just voted to sponsor 150 hot chocolates. Was that for the elementary school?
Might be for district office,
Yeah.
that kind of
No, I
number.
think I specifically said we couldn't, is that where they go?
I don't know
I don't
that
know.
answer.
I don't know.
The student council I know is involved, and the parent group has been very active with each of the respective buildings, but I don't know where specifically that contribution's going. That is great.
Shelley, do you have anything to report from the field?
I do. So last week was the middle school's winter concert, and it was a success. There was, if you weren't able to attend, it was the auditorium was filled. Great.
Can you remove?
Yes, great. They're excited to welcome back their holiday tea. That's going to be next Thursday, December 21st. So students will enjoy cookies and punch with peers, retired teachers, and board members. So we're looking forward to bringing back that exciting tradition. This Monday, they're going to make a surprise announcement for all students with a Cougar Pride Pass. They'll be called down to the cafeteria to enjoy hot cocoa, maybe that's where the hot cocoa is going. Whipped cream, cookies, Christmas music, and a raffle. They have 160 students with prize passes.
Numbers.
Yeah.
They have their fourth monthly Cougar Pride Assembly, it's going to be held tomorrow. It will include celebrating students and staff members of the month, a performance by the chorus, and a minute to win a game where student raffle winners will compete to decorate teachers' instruments. And they're going to continue to look for the monthly, or they want all of us to look to continue to look for monthly highlights on their official Facebook page, recognizing our staff and students of the month. It's from Mr. Hassel's weekly Cougar Pride students. Doing those, that's great. First quarter, they recognized 59% of the students receiving a grade point average of 85 and above or higher. They've also had 94% attendance rate, which is wonderful. And the student discipline girls are half what they were last year. So that is just kudos. And all the schools. That's fantastic. Tina or Alinda, do you have anything to report from the high school?
I have quite a bit, actually. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, well, of course, tonight you are meeting in the small cafeteria because the high school choir and band is having their concert at the middle school. On the 18th, they are initiating holiday spirit. And then on the 20th, progress reports are going to be mailed home. On the 21st, during period 8 and 9, there will be a holiday tea held where we're invited. Also, they have an elf day tradition that day. I'm not sure about the details, but it sounds like fun. The Cougar Pride traits for the month is being adaptable, and teachers will be nominating students that show that quality, and then a winner would be drawn, and then they would select from various award choices. The Rotary Student of the Month that was selected was Julian Infant or Infante. I'm not sure how to pronounce the name, but he has shown great academic excellence and was recently inducted in the National Honor Society. And he shows great citizenship in his class and throughout the community. The counseling department is reporting that students took the ASVAB aptitude test for academic and occupational success. It will identify through subtests their aptitudes and strengths for success in different jobs or educational programs. After that has been administered, students will be meeting in 2 months with representatives from ASVAB, and they will be given options and some resources to help them utilize the results in planning and thinking about their future, what it would include. There is also a December class attendance challenge that there are 2 different categories. The grade with the best improved attendance will win a prize, and the grade level with the best attendance overall will also win a prize, which would be something mentioned before, hot chocolate and time to have fun with their classmates. Mrs. Johnson, the librarian, is also reporting that students are loving the updates in the library of the flooring, the paint, and the shelving. They are really excited to be able to use that, and it's a much more welcoming environment. And the final thing is Mr. Wojcik's Earth Science class has learned the process of making sweet apple cider using his apple grinder and press, but they also delved into how the local apple industry impacts our community in a very positive way. And that's it. Quite a bit.
Thank you, Linda. Lots going on at the high school, too. Yeah.
What was it that the board was invited to? I missed it.
What was the what?
The board, you said the board was invited to something at the high school, but I didn't quite catch what it was.
Their tea, their holiday tea on the 21st. I believe the middle school is having something similar the same day.
Well, we'll just have to have a lot of tea then.
But the high schools is in the area. Middle schools all day. 8th and 9th period in the high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Linda. Tina, do you have anything to report from Cougar Ops? We heard good things about Cougar Ops.
Yeah, I think he spoke well of the program. But Cougar Ops continues to provide valuable assistance to our students, as evidenced by the end of tonight. The focus continues on credit recovery and Regions Prep. Currently, they've already earned 10 credits and expect to earn 80 by the end of the year, which is pretty phenomenal. Through Cougar Ops, they provided a Regions Prep program for the entire student body, not just limited to Cougar Ops, but spread out across the board. Anybody taking the Regions, so that they've got some prep there. So certainly going to ensure more success. They're staying positive, working toward that success. There's currently servicing 60,000.
Great. Thank you very much, liaisons. Linda, do you have anything to report from the Fort County, either Board of Directors or the Legislative Committee?
Not for the Board of Directors, but for the Legislative Committee. We had quite a lengthy meeting by Zoom on Saturday. And we were able to meet with our New York State Area Regent, Adrian Hale, is new for us. He studied educational reform at Yale and has been involved in that sort of work for many years in the area. He did express his desire to connect in all 8 counties, and he will be producing a newsletter, which we will be privy to. It'll be sent to us. He wants to visit schools, visit superintendent meetings. He's interested in planned pilot schools for alternative methods for education. He's interested in the use of artificial intelligence to help teachers deal with more tedious tasks that give them more flexibility to use their time in a more educational, advantageous way. Also, at that meeting, Heather Zellers, who has been working to promote educational benefits in New York State and also at the federal level, reported that at the present time in Congress, the House of Representatives is proposing a 20% cut in funding for schools, which would return us to the 2006 level. It also includes, and this is a quote, it decimates Title I and could result in a nationwide loss of 28,000 teaching positions. Also, community schools funding would be decimated as well, which would greatly impact rural districts like ours. She also noted that the amount allocated in the federal budget for education adds up to 2% of the national budget, which is not a great amount, but because it isn't necessarily mandated, it's an easy target. So it was very uplifting to meet and have conversation with our new Regent, but not so encouraging the report from Heather.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to add that with Fort County, I attended their professional development evening with the a librarian for BOCES, who was talking about how the libraries support curriculum and the importance of it. And then the second half of her talk dealt with the book reviewing processes and the censoring versus not censoring books. And there were other librarians who were present and it was very informative. One thing that she said to all of us board members present was that we really need to look at our policy on library and the review of books, and make sure that it's up to date and that it does exactly what you need to have it do. Not that you're trying to suppress public comment on books, but that you need to have your policy in order so that the process is correct. John, is there anything or the handbook committee hasn't met? Audit committee, you haven't met. I don't believe district safety has met. Paul, is there anything on policy?
Well, piggyback on what you just said, I'm pretty confident that we did library this year, right?
Yes, we do.
So I think ours is, it's current for sure, and I know that we reviewed it, and I think it was refined, so I think we remember this. So I think we're good to go there. As far as the whole committee, there's something I want to bring up back, get to board member questions.
Okay.
Real quick though, we got the first reading, and then we got approval, page 9.
And the ones listed here are for a first read, correct?
Correct. Well, first read on this first page, and then on page 9 we have approval.
Those are a second read. Yeah, okay. All right. And is there anything, Tina, you want to report on personnel and negotiations? Okay. At this time, it's the public is welcome to speak to the board. Has anyone signed up? Yeah. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. A motion, please, to approve the consent agenda. Paul and Shelley. Discussion. The consent agenda goes from page 2 through, I'm write it down this time, through page 9. No, I'm wrong. Yeah. Page 9. Yeah. Hearing no discussion, all in favor of approving the consent agenda? Motion is carried. Thank you, Linda. We got you. And now number 7 on page 9. These are the policies for a second reading. A motion, please, to for approval of the policies. Paul and Shelley. Discussion. John?
In discussion the last meeting, I thought we voted on Sunday activities 3271.
There wasn't a vote. This is the time to do it for everything.
So if we want to vote against one of the policies,
I'd like to can we pull the Sunday activity policy out of this resolution? And then can we put it on a separate resolution to, for discussion. All right, a motion, please. But I don't need a motion, do I? To pull it out. No. Please pull out number 3271, Sunday activities. I had a question. We're still in discussion on policies. I had a question on 3273. The use of facilities by Boy Scouts of America Patriotic Youth Groups. I don't know. It says in the policy that that the Boy Scouts of America and their any affiliations of theirs and other patriotic youth groups listed in Title 36 of the U.S. Code. I wondered what that was all about. Do you have any idea what that list would be?
I think we reviewed it, but Jane, if you have, I don't know what it is.
3273.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't even remember that policy before it was put there. It said, it was toward the end of the policy, that the district would not discriminate against the Boy Scouts of America and affiliates or other patriotic youth groups listed in the Title 36 of the U.S. Code. I just had no idea what the code was. Never heard of it.
Can you help me? People will look it up. But I don't, honestly, I don't think we paid a lot of attention to it because we felt, the committee felt like we should.
There's the policy right there. I have it.
Yeah, I got the policy, but just, I don't think we spent much time on it because we went, this is all the stuff.
I don't think it's anything that we've ever dealt with at all. Because it seemed to me that if the old policy said you would not discriminate if they were on the list, not knowing what's on the list, you might want to discriminate. Depending on what the political group was, you know. I'm all for deleting it. I just wondered if there was any clarification on it. I'm sorry to put a, what do you do?
We can't table it.
Oh, no, you don't need to table it on my, it's just, I don't know. I just don't even remember ever reading that policy. All right, we have pulled the Sunday activities, 3271. Is there any other discussion on the policies of the second, of approving the policies for the second reading? That everyone in favor of approving the policies presented for the second reading, minus number 3271, please indicate approval. In favor? Shelley, are you in favor? Okay, we're in favor. Thank you, that passes. Now, could I have a motion to put a resolution to resolve the 3271 for deletion? Paul, and is there a second? You? Tina, second. Discussion on Sunday activities. You want to speak to it, John?
I did at the last meeting, but to reiterate that, a board years ago decided that it was a smart thing to do because many coaches were having, activities on a Sunday. And not just coaches, I don't mean it to be just athletics, but it was in general school sponsored groups. And it became an issue at that time, and I think it still could be an issue. I'm not for having Sunday activities. I think that's a family time. Probably is not anyone else's policy. If you go to a different school district, it's probably not there. So that's my viewpoint against it. I don't like to delete the policy because I think it's a decent policy to have. And I think there are mitigating reasons to have sometimes a rehearsal or a activity on a Sunday. And I think that's spelled out, I think, on there.
Yes. I too am opposed to deleting this. It was not only the parents, some of the parents of kids who were on teams or in the musical production who felt they had to be there. But it was also the church, a lot of the church community was involved with that request. And I too am in favor of keeping Sunday a family day, a day separate from school activities. And I will be voting against deleting. Anyone else? Yes, Paul.
Yeah, I would also, I don't know whether other schools have it or not. During BOCE's review, felt it was okay. In other words, it was our committee that decided to trust BOCE's recommendation. So whatever the board wants to do.
So, and I think from being on the committee, I think the thing we talked about is that we need to inform our athletic department and our extracurricular activities that, yes, if you have to have, or if you want to have a practice, it can't count against, but there are many Sunday activities. So that's a piece that, I guess for me, I don't object to having Sunday activities. I just don't think that the students penalize if they can't participate.
There are like concerts and things on Sunday, and that was, I recall that being felt that was something a family could come and do together, but that the student could not be penalized if they did not attend per board policy, if there was a Sunday concert. Anyone else want to speak to that?
Can we ask for the superintendent's opinion?
If he agrees with me, you can. If he doesn't, we don't want to hear it.
Well, so to me, I think if you leave it intact and keep the Sunday activities policy in order, I would agree with the discussion that's taken place here. There have to be mitigating circumstances. Following that protocol, it's up to the building, if the building administrator and the respective administrator overseeing athletics and or musicals, right? Because he said during break, there's only 7 days in a week, and we have a very good problem. We have students that are involved in a lot of different things. And so there are school districts who are competing, practicing on Sundays. They can't practice 14 days in a row, but there are many that will practice on a Sunday through a Friday or pick up and compensate for that. I have no problem communicating this with our administrative team, say that the policy is going to remain in effect. Enforcement will be based on the individual administrator and the respective athletic administrator who will oversee this, because we don't want Sunday practices to become part of the norm, is what I'm hearing the collective board say. Is that correct?
Well, we're gonna vote then. We'll find out.
Well, so to that point, if the collective board says keep the policy intact, when it becomes a problem, or if it becomes a problem, then I think we need to revisit the policy. Currently, I don't have a number of people calling me up saying, why is this team practicing, or why is this group performing? But I do believe if it does stay and you do keep it in control, then yeah, we'll monitor that and we'll take any feedback that comes our way.
That said, I'll call a vote. All in favor of deleting the policy on Sunday activities, number 3271. Raise your hand. Thank you. All opposed to delete, all opposed to deleting policy 3271? Opposed? Raise your hand. Which means it's retained. Is there an acceptance? You're abstaining? Okay. So a vote of, Linda, you were a, you're
I
in
voted
favor.
for, yeah, I voted in
Yeah.
favor.
So that's a vote of, 1 for, 4 opposed, and 1 abstention. So the Sunday policy, the motion is defeated. Therefore, the policy 3271, Sunday activities, will be maintained as one of our school policies, our board policies. Thank you. Number 8, awarding the bids. This is number 8 is the bid award for the elementary HVAC.
Oh, are you going by the one in by 8?
No, I was going by the wedding.
No, go by the one I, go by the
What
one.
did I miss? What have I missed?
I'm not me,
How do we renumber? I did miss.
because I put executives.
Okay.
Okay, a motion please, to approve this. Shelley? Second, Tina? Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the bid award? Motion is approved. Let me see. We have some more motions, resolutions that came to us after the this agenda was presented. A motion, please, to put the green sheets on the agenda. Tina and John, any discussion? All in favor of putting the green sheets on? Motion is carried. Resolutions. We're going to look at resolutions A, B, C, D, and E. Those resolutions, for those of you out there, are A, recommendations from CSE and CPSE. B, to appoint a teacher aide. C, a paint bid award for the middle school hallways. D, a letter of resignation. And E, a letter of resignation. A motion, please, to put those resolutions, to approve those resolutions. Tina and Linda. Discussion? Paul?
Yeah, on the middle school, are we gonna, is this some kind of a coding we're gonna find, or just just a touch of.
This is not the veneer that we talked about as part of the capital project that was approved tonight. This is simply saying we're going to paint this in one uniform approach. So this is the walls that have taken on the abuse and the amount of work that they've taken with Mr. Clean scouring pads. We just want to go through in one fell swoop to make sure that we have a uniform and consistent color, and we're changing up the quality of the paint.
So it's a maintenance.
It is a maintenance thing, but it's also a quality thing, because I believe the feedback we received is that paint is part of the levelware project, was not a product that we really would put on something. Feel like it's inferior, this is gonna correct it.
Any other discussion? All right, then, all in favor of approving resolutions A, B, C, D, and E? Motion is carried. Now we come to, resolution A, under item, requiring a roll call vote, which is the bond resolution for the capital improvement project. A motion, please, to approve. John and Shelley? Any discussion? Hearing none, Tina, will you call the roll?
Linda,
Yes.
Tina,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Shelley,
Yes.
Linda,
Yes.
Jason is absent, Paul,
Yes.
thank you, Lauren.
That completes the green sheets, correct? All right, back to our agenda. Now we come down to the board member requests, comments, and discussion. Paul, you requested to speak to the board.
Yes, at the last committee meeting, policy committee, we came upon the two policies, evaluation of the superintendent and other administrative staff, and then superintendent of schools. And all three of us just kind of went, whoa, this is too big for our committee. We would like to have the board address these in the future.
What, can you tell us what you mean that it was too big? Is it too complicated, or
Well,
did you? I'm sorry.
Yeah, and please, Shelley and Tim, weigh in, but yeah, it seemed like, we've changed it for the last few years, and then we weren't very satisfied with the last one, so let's get the whole board involved. How do we want to do this?
It was just that basic, just two policies that we felt the whole board. Really looking at, dissecting it, determining it.
And interest level. Everyone of them were.
We also weren't following the policy. Correct. So we felt that it was a problem, that it really needed to be addressed. That was a little bit, that was a big, yeah.
My concern with the workshop is that if we're dealing with the superintendent's evaluation, I would want to make sure that we are within our legal means in a workshop. If we're discussing, because that sounds to me like it could be executive committee discussion, because it is a superintendent's evaluation, and then because the discussion could get personal, then it could be reworked so that it becomes general and policy. I'm just wondering if the attorney needs to give us a hand on this.
The attorney might be real helpful, but what we were talking about is the process, not the actual evaluation.
Correct.
So we want to look at how we're evaluating our superintendent, because we're not following these policies. And that's problematic. So it was like, and we didn't feel as a committee that we should represent the whole board on such an important issue.
No, we could. I mean, we can go back, you can say, go back and go to work. I'm willing to do that, but we just
I'm not sure when we would be able to, we're going to have to, I'm not sure it could be next month's workshop in the, I don't know how, I know we're going to have to deal with capital projects coming up and budget coming up. But if you'd like the whole board, we will get it in sometime or another, hopefully as soon as we can.
That's certainly the consensus of the committee.
The best we can do at this moment.
Yeah. They were rewritten in 17 and 15, so it isn't like they're ancient. But yeah, we'd just like to bring them up to the 21st century.
So there would be something we'll talk about in agenda setting. How we can get that worked in, whether it be as part of a meeting or as at a workshop. Okay. Is that all right? Okay. I have a few things here that I wanted to do. You did all receive, did you not, at the last board meeting, the final copy of the initiatives? Or you've got them in you've got them now. So please add that to your handbooks and take out the old ones if you still have them in there. We had asked Tina for demographics on buildings, and here they are. And I want you to know that Tina did these some time ago, and I was neglectful in getting them to you. So if you pass those down, so don't blame Tina, blame me. And Linda, you'll have to stop at the district office, I guess, and pick yours up. All right. And additionally, we had requested that we were interested in the curriculum guides as far as what's being taught. I particularly was surprised that some of the things that were offered at the high school, I didn't know were offered. And so here you are, Tina got these already for you too. And again, we'll put that with your packet, Linda. Okay. So that is quick enough to keep you busy for a week or so reading that. All right. Is there anybody else who wanted to bring something before the board? Then let's move to good news. We had a ton of good news with our liaisons today. Does anyone have anything they want to add? Paul?
You would call I missed, not missed, but I was zooming in for a couple of meetings.
Yeah.
But, so this is from October, but whenever you get a chance to brag about one of your students, I think we ought to do it. Kendra Dalton was the Rotary Student of the Month. And she, the reason I really think this is to be highlighted is because she's already got a scholarship to RIT and she wants to go in for engineering. So well done, Kendra. A nice article on our new director for special attendant, Jessica. Does she pronounce it Meisner? I would like to have it. Meisner? Okay. That was in our Lakeshore News. And then also, yeah, this took place back in October, but I just wasn't here. The Northwest High School students explore construction and manufacturing careers. So another nice article. And I know Jason and I have been big advocates of this. The Southwest juniors and seniors went to Rochester Careers Construction Day on October 19th. And then after that, the juniors and seniors were invited to attend an advanced manufacturing institute at the Uva Community College on the 26th. It included several companies were there, including Courier, ITT Gold Pump, Manufacturing, and Newport Steel. So again, this is great stuff for students that may or may not want to go to school, either or college, either one. That's it for me.
Thank you. Go ahead, Tina. Tina had good news that we.
So earlier this month, Mr. Pullen invited, it was BOCES actually invited board president, vice president to tour the BOCES Center, see all of the program there, and then the culinary arts cooked us lunch. It was very nice, very informative. I would recommend anybody to get a tour. I had been there when I was working here, and it's changed so much. I want to go back to school. It's very impressive. It really is.
Mhm.
Good news, that reminds me, Fort County isn't gonna have the rural schools. Do we have that scheduled yet?
The Fort County piece on hiring practices.
Yeah. and
That's actually the spring workshop, so David Little is gonna come down, he and Heather Zeller, because Heather's been really integral. So we're gonna talk about the challenges the rural school district face with hiring and retaining quality people. That's something that, I've worked with, Fort County Director Steve Miskell and Joe McNamara on, just saying, I think this is something that's hitting regionally, not just unique to our district. And David Little and Heather should be doing a fantastic job for us in the spring.
Yeah.
They'll present the national data.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, that concludes our agenda for the evening. A motion, please, to adjourn. Shelley? Paul? Any discussion? All in favor of adjourning?
Bye.
Nice to see you, Linda.
Yep.
Bye.
Nice to be seen. Take care.
Oh.